As the sun sets over the dense canopy of the Amazon rainforest, 3 explorers are about to embark on a journey that will change their lives forever. Deep in the heart of the jungle lies an ancient temple, shrouded in mystery and whispered legends of a forgotten deity. Driven by curiosity and the promise of untold secrets, Raphael, Isabella, and Lucas set out to uncover the truth. But the jungle is unforgiving, and the temple, it's more than just ruins. With each step, they're drawn closer to something darker, something that has been waiting for centuries. Will they make it out, or will the shadows of the past claim them? Get ready for a chilling adventure where history and horror collide. The sun hung low in the sky, casting golden rays that filtered through the dense canopies of the Amazon rainforest. I stood on the porch of my childhood home in a small Brazilian town, the scent of wet earth mingling with the faint aroma of distant flowers. My heart raced as I unfolded the weathered map, its edges frayed from years of handling. It charted a course deep into the jungle, where rumors of ancient ruins whispered tales of a forgotten deity. "Raphael, are you sure about this?" Isabella asked, her brows knitting together in concern. "The jungle can be unforgiving. We're not just traipsing through a park." "Trust me," I replied, rolling the map tightly and tucking it into my backpack. "This temple is said to hold secrets of a civilization long lost to time. If we can find it, we might uncover something incredible, something that could rewrite history." Lucas, leaning against the porch railing with his arms crossed, scoffed. "And what if all we find are mosquito bites and heat stroke? You need to face it, man. Not every legend leads to treasure." "Yeah, but what if it does?" I countered, feeling the familiar spark of excitement ignite within me. "I've spent years studying the lore and the artifacts. There's something more here, something that calls to me." Isabella sighed, her expression softening. "Okay, I'm in. But I want to make sure we stay safe. We should prepare ourselves for whatever we might encounter." "Count me in too," Lucas said, rolling his eyes but with a hint of a grin. "Someone has to document your inevitable misadventures." With our minds made up, we gathered supplies: water, food, a first aid kit, and of course, Lucas's ever-present camera. As we loaded the car, I glanced back at my town, nestled peacefully amidst the wild chaos of the jungle. It felt like a farewell, but I couldn't yet articulate why. The journey into the Amazon was nothing short of breathtaking. The air thickened with humidity, and the chorus of insects enveloped us like a living blanket. "Look at those trees," I called out, pointing to the towering giants that seemed to pierce the heavens. "They're older than we can imagine." "Yeah, and they're hiding all sorts of creatures," Lucas quipped as he swatted at a particularly aggressive mosquito. "I hope you're prepared for what lurks in the shadows, Indiana Jones." "Just keep your eyes peeled for anything unusual," I replied, feeling a sense of urgency in my gut. We pressed on deeper into the wilderness, navigating through thick underbrush and avoiding the occasional snake that slithered across our path. After hours of trudging through the humid jungle, we finally reached a clearing. The air shifted, and the atmosphere grew heavy, like a blanket pulled tightly around us. "This is it," I breathed, my heart pounding in my chest. Before us stood the remnants of the ancient temple, its stones worn and covered in moss. Intricate carvings adorned the surface, telling stories lost to time. "Incredible," Isabella whispered, tracing her fingers over the symbols. "These markings, they're not just decorative. They seem to depict some kind of ritual." "Look over here," Lucas shouted, his voice echoing against the stone. He pointed to a larger stone slab, etched with what appeared to be a celestial map. "This could be a guide to the deity worshipped here. I need to get a picture." As Lucas focused his camera, I stepped closer to the temple's entrance, feeling an inexplicable pull. There was something in the air, a whisper that beckoned me forward. "Raphael, don't go too close," Isabella warned, her voice laced with concern. But I couldn't resist. "I have to see it," I murmured, stepping into the shadow of the structure. The temperature dropped, and the hairs on my arms stood on end. It was as if the temple was alive, breathing with a history I could almost feel. "Hey, check this out," Lucas called, breaking my trance. I turned to see him capturing more images, but his expression had shifted. "Do you see these symbols? They look almost alive." "What do you mean?" I asked, stepping back toward them. "Like they're watching us," Lucas replied, his voice lowered. "It's creepy, man. I laughed nervously, but the chuckle died in my throat as I noticed the air growing thicker, the whispers in the wind becoming more pronounced. Maybe we should. Suddenly, Isabella gasped, her eyes wide. Do you feel that? What? I asked, looking between them, my pulse quickening. It's like something is here with us. I didn't know what to say, but deep down I felt it too. The temple, with its ancient stones and unfathomable history, seemed to pulse with a life of its own, and we were just beginning to uncover the shadows that lurked within. The air inside the temple was thick with an eerie stillness, as if the very walls were holding their breath. The flickering flames of our torches danced along the stone surfaces, illuminating murals that seemed to come alive in the shadows. I could hardly believe my eyes. The walls were adorned with grotesque images of rituals and sacrifices, the colors faded but still vibrantly disturbing. My heart raced as I traced the outlines of figures, their faces twisted in agony and ecstasy, locked in a dance of life and death. Look at this, Raphael whispered, his voice barely above a breath. He pointed to a particularly striking mural where a robed figure stood over what appeared to be an altar, surrounded by a throng of worshippers with faces frozen in terror. This must be the deity they worshipped. But why such fear? What could have happened here? I don't know, but it feels wrong, I replied, a shiver running down my spine. The darkness seemed to pulse around us, and for a moment I thought I could hear whispers, barely audible, threading through the silence. Lucas, ever the skeptic, rolled his eyes. Come on, guys. It's just old paint and shadows playing tricks. We're not here to get spooked. We need to document this, he said, raising his camera to capture the artwork. The flash illuminated the room momentarily, casting long, unnatural shadows that skittered across the walls. As we ventured deeper into the temple, I felt an inexplicable pull towards the shadows. It was as if something was beckoning me, urging me to explore further. Suddenly, I caught a glimpse of movement, a fleeting figure darting across the corner of my eye. I gasped, the sound tearing from my throat before I could contain it. Did you see that? I cried, my heart pounding in my chest. See what? Raphael asked, concern etching his features. Isabella, are you okay? There was something in the shadows. I stammered, my breath quickening. Lucas, however, shook his head dismissively. It's just the dim light messing with your eyes. Focus, Isabella, we need to stay rational here. But I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. It was as if the temple itself were alive, its secrets clawing at the edges of my mind, desperate to be uncovered. I took a deep breath, trying to regain my composure, but a chill coursed through me. As we pushed further into the temple's heart, we stumbled upon a hidden chamber. The air was thick with dust, and artifacts lay scattered around, half buried in the earth. I knelt beside a stone bowl, intricately carved, filled with what looked like dried remnants of offerings. My fingers brushed against the cool surface, and in that instant, the world around me exploded into chaos. Visions crashed into my mind, screams echoing through the darkness, blood pooling on the cold stone floor, faces twisted in despair. I recoiled, my body shaking as I struggled to separate the past from the present. Raphael and Lucas watched, their expressions shifting from curiosity to alarm. Isabella, what's happening? Raphael shouted, reaching out to steady me. You're pale. I closed my eyes, trying to block out the onslaught of images, but they were relentless. I saw a woman, her face streaked with tears, begging for mercy before a faceless figure. The ground beneath me felt unstable, as if I were being pulled into the very fabric of the temple's dark history. It's like a memory, I gasped, tears streaming down my face. I can see them. They're trapped here. They want to be free. Lucas stepped back, his skepticism wavering. Isabella, we need to leave. This isn't safe. No, we can't just walk away, I shouted, desperation clawing at my throat. We have to understand what happened here. We have to help them. Raphael exchanged a worried glance with Lucas, the weight of the moment hanging heavily in the air. What if this place is more than just a temple? What if it's a prison? He said, his voice low and serious. The reality of his words sank in, and I felt a chill creep down my spine. The walls around us seemed to lean in closer, as if they were listening, waiting for our next move. I could feel the weight of the spirits pressing down on me, their sorrow and rage mingling with my own fear. The temple wasn't just a relic of the past. It was a living entity, and we were trespassers in its haunted domain. The night crept in like a thick fog, enveloping us in an oppressive darkness as we set up camp inside the ancient temple. The air was heavy, as if the walls themselves were breathing, whispering secrets of the past. I could hear my heart pounding in my chest, a steady reminder of my own vulnerability. Raphael tried to lighten the mood, but his jokes fell flat against the backdrop of eerie shadows flitting across the stone walls. "Did you guys hear that?" Isabella's voice, barely more than a whisper, broke the silence. I glanced at her, noticing the way her eyes darted around, searching the dim corners for something unseen. "Sheer what?" Lucas rolled his eyes, adjusting his camera equipment. "It's just the wind." "No." Isabella shook her head, her voice trembling. It sounded like voices, coming from down that corridor. She pointed, her fingers shaking slightly. "Voices? Come on, Isabella, it's just your imagination. There's no one here but us," Lucas replied, though his skepticism wore thin under the weight of the temple's oppressive aura. I wanted to believe him, to dismiss Isabella's fears as mere figments conjured by the darkness. But deep down, a nagging sensation took root in my gut. The temple felt alive, its stones imbued with ancient energy that pulsed just beneath the surface. I could sense it watching us, aware of our presence. "Let's just try to get some sleep," I suggested, trying to mask my own unease. "We can explore more in the morning." As we settled into our sleeping bags, the temple's chorus of strange noises began to crescendo. The faint rustle of leaves, distant whispers that seemed to echo from the walls, and the occasional low growl that sent shivers down my spine. Sleep eluded me, and I lay awake, staring into the shadows, feeling a cold draft brush against my skin. "Raphael?" Isabella's voice pierced the stillness. "Are you awake?" "Yeah," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. "What's wrong?" "I can't shake the feeling that we're not alone here. It's like something is watching us," she said, her breath hitching. "Maybe it's just the stories you've read," I suggested, trying to provide comfort. "This place is just old and creepy, nothing more." "I wish I could believe that," Isabella murmured. Suddenly, a loud crash reverberated through the temple, shaking the ground beneath us. I shot up, adrenaline flooding my veins. "What was that?" I exclaimed. Lucas fumbled for his flashlight, the beam cutting through the darkness. "Stay close," he ordered, trying to maintain a facade of bravery. We stumbled out of our sleeping bags, hearts racing. The noise had come from the far end of the chamber. "Let's check it out," I said, forcing myself to sound confident. It could be just a falling rock or something. As we crept towards the source of the sound, I felt the temperature drop, an unnatural chill creeping into my bones. Shadows danced in the corners of my vision, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. We reached the end of the corridor, and there, in the flickering light of Lucas's flashlight, we found a stack of ancient stones that had toppled over. "Just some debris," Lucas said, relief evident in his voice. But the moment was short-lived. A chill swept through the air, and the whispers grew louder, swirling around us like a tempest. "Did you hear that?" Isabella's eyes widened, and I could see the fear etched on her face. Before I could answer, Lucas pulled out an old scroll he had found earlier. "Look at this." His voice rose with excitement, momentarily distracting us from the ominous atmosphere. "I think it might be some kind of ancient script. What does it say?" Isabella leaned in, her curiosity piqued despite her fear. Lucas squinted at the faded letters. "It mentions the temple being a prison for spirits, trapped here for eternity." A heavy silence fell over us as the implications sank in. "What do you mean, prison for spirits?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "It says here that they were once worshipped but betrayed. They're bound to this place, trapped in a cycle of torment," Lucas explained, his face pallid in the dim light. Isabella recoiled slightly, her hand instinctively reaching for mine. "We shouldn't be here," she said, her voice cracking. "We need to leave." "No," Raphael interjected, his determination shining through the fear. "We need to understand what we're dealing with. If this place holds the key to something greater, we can't just turn back now." "But at what cost?" Isabella pressed, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "What if we unleash something terrible?" Before we could debate further, the ground trembled violently beneath us, throwing us off balance. Chaos erupted as we struggled to keep our footing. The walls shook, and a deep rumble echoed through the chamber. "Get back!" Panic rising in his voice as he dropped the scroll. The flashlight flickered and died, plunging us into darkness. In the chaos, I glanced around, desperately searching for something, anything, to anchor me in this spiraling nightmare. When the tremor subsided, I looked around, breathless. "Are we okay?" I panted, trying to regain my composure. But as we gathered ourselves, I noticed something that made my heart drop. "Where's your camera, Lucas?" As we stumbled through the labyrinthine corridors of the temple, the oppressive atmosphere weighed heavily on my chest. My heart raced, not just from the thrill of discovery, but from an instinctual dread that gnawed at me. "Where the hell is Lucas's camera?" I muttered, glancing nervously at Isabella and Raphael, who were examining a wall covered in intricate carvings. "I swear I left it right here," Lucas said, his voice tight with frustration. He crouched down, sifting through the debris scattered on the ground. "It had all of our findings. This is a disaster." "It can't have gone far," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "We just need to retrace our steps." Raphael's gaze lingered on the wall. "These symbols, there's something profound about them. I can feel it. We might be missing something crucial if we leave now." I felt a shiver run down my spine. "Raphael, we're not leaving without the camera. We need that evidence if we're going to document what we find here." He nodded, but his eyes remained transfixed on the carvings. "Let's just check one more area before we go back. There's a door over here." I followed him, my unease growing with each step. The door loomed large before us. Its surface was smooth and cold, marked with the same unsettling symbols as the walls. I felt a strange pull toward it, like a whisper in the back of my mind urging me to reach out. "Do you think we should open it?" Isabella stepped closer, her brow furrowed with concern. "It looks like it hasn't been opened in centuries. What if it's trapped? Or what if it leads to something incredible?" Raphael countered, his eyes sparkling with the thrill of discovery. I felt torn between curiosity and caution. "Raphael, we don't know what's on the other side. Maybe it's best to leave it be." But he was already moving toward the door, brushing his fingers over the cool stone. "I have to know. If there's a chance it could lead us to the truth about the deity worshipped here, I can't just walk away." "Wait," I cried, but it was too late. He pushed against the door and it creaked open, releasing a blinding light that enveloped us. I shielded my eyes, feeling an inexplicable force tugging at me. The air shimmered, and in an instant, we were no longer in the temple, but in a surreal, otherworldly place. Shadows danced around us, flickering like candle flames. Ghostly figures emerged from the mist, their faces twisted in expressions of anguish. "What is this place?" Lucas breathed, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's beautiful and terrifying," Isabella murmured, her eyes wide with wonder. The spirits began to coalesce, their voices merging into a haunting chorus of pleas. "Free us, please," they wailed, their words echoing through the ethereal space. I felt a chill grip my heart. "They're trapped here. This is what the temple was for." Raphael stepped forward, mesmerized. They were worshipped. This was their sanctuary, but it became their prison. "Do you think they were betrayed by their own people?" Isabella asked, her voice trembling. I nodded, a heavy realization settling over me. They've been waiting for someone to come and help them. But it feels like they're not just asking for freedom. They want revenge. The figures swirled around us, their faces contorted in despair. It could be just a falling rock or something. As we crept towards the source of the sound, I felt the temperature drop, an unnatural chill creeping into my bones. Shadows danced in the corners of my vision, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. We reached the end of the corridor, and there, in the flickering light of Lucas's flashlight, we found a stack of ancient stones that had toppled over. "Just some debris," Lucas said, relief evident in his voice. But the moment was short-lived. A chill swept through the air, and the whispers grew louder, swirling around us like a tempest. "Did you hear that?" Isabella's eyes widened, and I could see the fear etched on her face. Before I could answer, Lucas pulled out an old scroll he had found earlier. "Look at this." His voice rose with excitement, momentarily distracting us from the ominous atmosphere. "I think it might be some kind of ancient script. What does it say?" Isabella leaned in, her curiosity piqued despite her fear. Lucas squinted at the faded letters. "It mentions the temple being a prison for spirits, trapped here for eternity." A heavy silence fell over us as the implications sank in. "What do you mean, prison for spirits?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "It says here that they were once worshipped but betrayed. They're bound to this place, trapped in a cycle of torment," Lucas explained, his face pallid in the dim light. Isabella recoiled slightly, her hand instinctively reaching for mine. "We shouldn't be here," she said, her voice cracking. "We need to leave." "No," Raphael interjected, his determination shining through the fear. "We need to understand what we're dealing with. If this place holds the key to something greater, we can't just turn back now." "But at what cost?" Isabella pressed, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "What if we unleash something terrible?" Before we could debate further, the ground trembled violently beneath us, throwing us off balance. Chaos erupted as we struggled to keep our footing. The walls shook, and a deep rumble echoed through the chamber. "Get back!" Panic rising in his voice as he dropped the scroll. The flashlight flickered and died, plunging us into darkness. In the chaos, I glanced around, desperately searching for something, anything, to anchor me in this spiraling nightmare. When the tremor subsided, I looked around, breathless. "Are we okay?" I panted, trying to regain my composure. But as we gathered ourselves, I noticed something that made my heart drop. "Where's your camera, Lucas?" As we stumbled through the labyrinthine corridors of the temple, the oppressive atmosphere weighed heavily on my chest. My heart raced, not just from the thrill of discovery, but from an instinctual dread that gnawed at me. "Where the hell is Lucas's camera?" I muttered, glancing nervously at Isabella and Raphael, who were examining a wall covered in intricate carvings. I shouted, my voice echoing off the cold stone walls. The spirits surged closer, their wails rising to an unsettling crescendo. "We're not leaving them. Not like this." I felt a surge of determination, a force greater than my fear urging me forward. "I'll do it. I'll perform the ritual." "Isabella, wait!" Raphael reached for my arm, but I shook him off, stepping deeper into the chamber. The air thickened with the weight of the spirit's presence, and I could feel them swirling around me, their longing palpable. "Isabella, think about this." Lucas's voice broke through the chaos, but I was already lost in the moment, the connection to the spirits overwhelming my senses. I could hear them more clearly now, their cries blending into a haunting melody that tugged at my soul. Ignoring their pleas, I focused on the ancient symbols etched into the stone walls. "I can do this. I can help them." I began to chant the words that floated to the forefront of my mind, a language so old it felt like it resonated in my bones. The spirits responded instantly, their forms shimmering with energy, their cries transforming into a harmonious chorus that surrounded me. "Isabella, please?" Raphael's voice was laced with desperation. I could see him and Lucas exchanging worried glances, but their concerns faded into the background as I lost myself in the rhythm of the chant. The chamber began to tremble, the very foundation of the temple shaking as if the spirits were awakening from a deep slumber. I pressed on, the words flowing from my lips, each syllable igniting the air around me. The spirits surged forward, their faces twisted in a mix of pain and hope, urging me to continue. "Isabella, we have to stop," Raphael shouted, his voice cutting through the energy like a knife. But I couldn't stop now, not when I was so close to setting them free. Suddenly, a violent tremor shook the ground beneath my feet, sending shockwaves through the temple. The whispers escalated into a roar, the spirits swirling around me, their forms becoming more defined, more urgent. I felt a rush of power coursing through me, a connection that transcended time and space. "Please, Isabella." Lucas's voice cracked under the strain of the chaos. "You don't know what you're doing." But all I could think of was the release, the freedom I was offering to these tormented souls. "I'm doing this for you," I shouted, pouring every ounce of my will into the incantation, my voice rising above the cacophony. The chamber shook violently, and the air crackled with energy, a storm of emotions swirling around us. In that moment, I was no longer just Isabella. I was a conduit for the spirits, the very essence of their pain and yearning. The temple trembled as the ritual reached its climax, and I could feel the boundary between our worlds beginning to dissolve. There was no turning back now. One spirit, a woman with hollow eyes, reached out to me. You can help us," she whispered, her voice echoing with sorrow. "What do you want from us?" I asked, my throat dry as fear wrapped around me like a vice. "Release us from this torment," she pleaded, her hand trembling in the air. "We were once loved, but we were betrayed. We cannot rest until our story is told." "Raphael, we need to get out of here," Lucas urged, glancing nervously at the encroaching spirits. "No," Raphael exclaimed, his voice rising above the cacophony. "We can't turn our backs on them. They deserve to be heard." "But at what cost?" I countered, feeling the weight of the spirit's despair pressing down on me. The ghostly figures swirled closer, their expressions shifting from sorrow to anger. I could feel their frustration pulsating through the air, their unfulfilled desires resonating deep within me. This temple, it was meant to protect them, but it has become their prison, Isabella said, her voice nearly drowned out by the growing chaos. "What if we're meant to break the curse? What if we could help them find peace?" The air thickened with tension as the spirits began to chant in unison, their voices rising to a fever pitch. "Free us! Free us!" I looked at Raphael and Lucas, my heart racing. The weight of their suffering bore down on me, and I knew that whatever choice we made next would change everything. The air around us felt electric, charged with a tension that was palpable. I stood in the center of the hidden chamber, the weight of the spirits' eyes upon me as they murmured in an incomprehensible language. My heart raced. "We have to do something," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Raphael, still trying to make sense of everything, glanced at me, uncertainty etched across his face. "Isabella, we can't just perform a ritual without understanding the consequences." Lucas chimed in, his skepticism surfacing once more. "What if we unleash something we can't control?" I could feel the spirit's desperation seeping into my very being, their anguish resonating within me. "They deserve to be free. We can't just leave them here to suffer," I argued, my voice gaining strength. I feel a connection to them. It's like they're calling out to me." "Calling out?" Raphael snapped, frustration breaking through his calm demeanor. "Or luring you into a trap? You don't know what you're dealing with." His eyes darted around the chamber, as if the walls themselves were listening. I took a step toward the swirling apparitions, their ghostly forms shifting and flickering in the dim light. "They were betrayed, Raphael. They trusted their people, and now they're trapped here. We can help them." Lucas crossed his arms, the skeptical journalist in him unwilling to back down. "And what if helping them means putting ourselves in danger? We have no idea what they're capable of. We could end up like them." "Enough?" "She's making a choice," he breathed, a mixture of awe and despair on his face. I couldn't stand it any longer. I grabbed Raphael's arm and yanked him back. "We have to leave now." As we turned to flee, I glanced back one last time. Isabella was enveloped in a whirlwind of spirits, her form blurring into theirs, a smile gracing her lips. In that moment, she looked at peace, even as the chaos swirled around her. "Isabella!" I cried out, but my voice was lost in the maelstrom. As we ran toward the exit, I heard the last words she spoke, a haunting message that echoed in the air. "The past never truly dies." We burst through the temple doors, collapsing into the daylight outside. I turned back, heart racing, and saw the entrance seal shut behind us, a finality that sent chills down my spine. The temple had become a tomb once more, but the weight of what had just happened bore down on me. We had come to uncover the past, but what we found was something far more sinister, an eternal cycle of betrayal and vengeance. I looked at Raphael, and the expression on his face mirrored my own. We had lost Isabella, and the spirits were now bound to the darkness forever, their hunger unquenched. As we stumbled through the jungle, the weight of the revelation pressed heavily on my chest. The echoes of Isabella's sacrifice would haunt us, a reminder that some doors once opened can never be closed.